In literature, the fantasy genre has been around for ages. From Homer's epic poem The Odyssey to the Old English tale Beowulf, to stories such as William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, the genre has been evolving. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, the man behind the orcs, elves, swords, and sorcery, is considered to be the father of modern fantasy literature. However, there is much more to Tolkien's legacy than Middle-earth. It was 1891 and Mabel Suffield, a 21-year-old woman of English heritage, was leaving her hometown of Birmingham. Arthur Reuel Tolkien was waiting for her in Cape Town, South Africa. They were to be married. Three years earlier, Arthur had proposed to Mabel, but due to her father's disapproval because of her young age, she was forbidden to marry. She and Arthur were limited to secretly sending letters and meeting at dinner parties. Arthur was not in a good enough financial situation to support a spouse either. His father, John Benjamin Tolkien, was involved in a family-run piano firm. Eventually, the firm left the Tolkiens' hands, and Arthur's father was bankrupt and without a family business to employ his sons. Arthur had to find another way to make money and turned towards South Africa. The gold and diamond discoveries elevated banking to a new level. Tolkien received a position at the Bank of Africa and was later appointed manager of the bank's branch in Bloemfontein, present-day capital city of the Free State Province in South Africa. Now at an acceptable age, Mabel Suffield left her hometown of Birmingham, England to see her fiancé. Arthur Reuel Tolkien and Mabel Suffield were married in Cape Town Cathedral on April 16, 1891. From this point on, Arthur worked very hard at the bank trying to keep valuable accounts, and Mabel tried to endure the Bloemfontein climate and lifestyle as much as she could. Soon after settling in the town, Mabel became pregnant. On January 3, 1892, John Ronald Reuel Tolkien was born. He was primarily called Ronald since no one in the family had been named that. Some of his friends called him John Ronald or Tollers as a nickname. Even at a very young age, an inspiration for his future works is slightly evident. When he was beginning to walk, Ronald was bitten by a tarantula and had a fear of spiders ever since. The second volume of the Lord of the Rings trilogy features a giant venomous spider that a small hobbit has to overcome. Two years later, on February 17th, his brother Hilary Arthur Reuel Tolkien was born. Hilary's health held up nicely in the South African climate, but Ronald didn't fare as well. The heat in particular had a negative effect on his health. Mabel, also disliking the climate, sought a place that better suited Ronald's health conditions. In April of 1895, Mabel and the two boys left Bloemfontein and arrived in Birmingham, England to stay with the rest of the Suffield family, while Arthur stayed in South Africa. In this environment, Ronald's health began to improve. Arthur's health, however, was failing. In November 1896, he contracted rheumatic fever. When he notified his family of the sickness, he had already recovered partially but was still in no shape to endure an English winter. His condition worsened by January, forcing Mabel to plan a trip back to Bloemfontein. Before she left, a telegram came in on February 14th that said that Arthur had suffered a severe hemorrhage and Mabel must expect the worst. On February 15, 1891, he was dead. 2 years later, after living in her parents' house, Mabel and the two boys moved into a house in the countryside south of Birmingham called Sarehole. Tolkien would later mention that his attachment to this place had a great impact on both himself and his writing. Many real locations in Sarehole provided inspiration for places in The Hobbit, such as Bag End and Hob Lane. Mabel began homeschooling both Ronald and Hilary. She taught them reading and writing in English, French, and Latin, Ronald's favorite language at the time. He proved to be a very intelligent student and learned to read at age 4 and soon after began to write. He was an excellent artist and was also fascinated by the trees in his town. Ronald also recalls his hobbit-esque relationship with his brother and the fun times they had in Sarehole picking mushrooms and flowers from a farmer's yard.
Don't you lose him, Samwise Gamgee. I don't mean to.
We spent lovely summers just picking flowers and trespassing. We had to go through the White Ogre's land, and he didn't like us very much because the path was narrow through his field, and we traipsed off after corncockles and other pretty things. My mother got us lunch to have in this lovely place, but when she arrived, she made a deep voice and we both ran.